And so I kind of broke it down into 4 steps, and I will explain them quickly right now. How far are we into the stream? 22 minutes. I'm going to keep this. So basically, the first step that we want to focus on is breath, right? So breath. So when you're sitting in your chair, oftentimes, and I've caught myself doing this too, when we sit, we're kind of like this and just hunched over, right? Well, that's not going to produce the most beautiful sound we can because our breath will be constricted. So the way I think about it is I think of sitting all the way back in my chair. So my butt is on the back of the chair. And then my next point of my chair leans back, so this is hard, but my next point of contact is my shoulder blades, right? So you feel like you could stick your hand right here. You should have your natural curvature of the spine. So push your butt all the way back and then push your shoulder blades, or not push your shoulder blades, but just have your shoulder blades. So you should be in like this position where you're sitting nice and tall, and then you bring your horn to you. And I mean, we don't have to make it uncomfortable, but this versus this is all the difference in the world, right? And then when I think about breathing, I think about my back expanding towards the back of my chair. So I just think about my back going to the back of the chair. And what this does is it basically should feel like a balloon is inside of you, filling up in all directions, right? And this alleviates breaths that go, and we have sort of this tension at the top. If you have any questions as I'm going, if anybody has any questions as I'm going, please set them down there. But if in the chat, let me know in the chat if you agree with this or you disagree, or if you're trying this thing out with me while I'm describing it, please let me know in the chat how it's going. This is something I've taught, but it's a little bit different when you're teaching it and people aren't right on the other side. So anyway, when we breathe and we have this kind of tightness here, well, that's not good, right? That's not going to set us up to be able to release easily. So the first step is to try to get it so our back expands and we fill up like a balloon. So we go, kind of breathe from our diaphragm, which you hear this all the time. I don't know, the balloon thing makes a lot of sense to me, expanding in all directions. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to essentially give yourself a prep beat, right? And so when conductors go beam, bum, beam, a lot of times it's easier to play because we just are playing in time. Or when others are playing around us, it's easier to play because we're sort of joining them, right? Well, when we're starting, if there's no discernible point at when we want to start playing, there's no time for our air and our chops and our tongue and everything to coordinate. And coordination is king in terms of especially starting, but playing the trumpet in general. And so what I do is I just give myself a prep beat, right? So I'll put the trumpet mic on, but if I'm going to play pictures, I'll think bum, bum, beam. Well, so I'll think 1, 2, 3, 4, beam, and play right exactly when the downbeat would come. Right? I don't know if that was the most beautiful sound or whatever, but the sound was there when I wanted it to. So Mahler 5 would be 1, 2, 3, da 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 dum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, da 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 dum. Right? So that's what I'm going to think. Okay? So I realize sitting in my room, in my practice room, it's easier to do that. But that's one of the important steps, is if you give yourself a place for everything to coordinate in terms of rhythm, it's much more reliable. And then the third step, so we have breath, we have timing, or give yourself a place to start, and then we have commitment. This is where a lot of things go south for people, is because we play the trumpet in sort of a testing manner. We're testing to see if it's going to work. And the trumpet, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You just have to commit 100% to whatever it's going to be. And so we want to, there's this exercise where if you kind of close your eyes and you think of playing Mahler 5 as if your sound was starting in another state or something like that, this helps with air flow underneath, right? And so I did this on a different stream, but You can think about it in terms of, I'm going to project to my stand, I'm going to project to something I can see but far away, and then I'm going to project to something that I can't see that's far away and see what the differences are. So that's what this will be, what that exercise is. I'll use pictures again. So that was my computer monitor, but you're staying something very close to you. Now I'm going to look farther away and play further away. So I'm not going to play louder. I'm not going to play more loudly. I'm just going to try to fill the space a little bit more. So this is what people who play in a hall all the time are afforded, is they can look at the back of the hall and think, I got to project all the way back there. But if you don't have that, you can just look far away. And then the third version would be, I'm going to think of my home in Lincoln, Nebraska. Right now I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm going to think of my home in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so what that does is it gets you to hear more or less what your best, fullest, most projected sound is. Now, the technical thing that benefits from this is you have an airstream that's excited and energized underneath. It's impossible to project without your air moving. And so this kind of is an interesting exercise to hear that sound, but ultimately you want to use this exercise. Mark did it the other day. So Mark, if you want to like kind of chime in with if you feel like what it was like to do it, and if you've been doing it in subsequent days, what your experience has been doing it. But basically, it's a tool to help us hear our best sound so that we can memorize that sound, and then we can hear that sound in our ear and then go. So then it becomes song in wind. I have now heard my best sound, so now I can imagine my best sound and play my best sound more often. So this is what that would look like. Okay, so yeah, Mark is a fan, I guess. That time I wasn't thinking far away. I was thinking of making the sound, right? So then and all we have to do is time it and then commit 100% to that sound we're trying to make. And then the fourth step is flow. Don't let anything mess with your ability to play with flow. So I'm not sure if all that makes sense. Carl, if you have a chance you can obviously rewind the stream if you want. But if that's something you're interested in trying out, let me know what you think. Mark, sorry. I've been doing when I ever try to play quieter dynamics without it sounding strangled. Yeah, so it kind of gives you this airstream underneath everything. And so if you apply all of that, especially the commitment part, to playing C and lower, I think it'll give you just more support, right? And so that support will be a big help to you. And then from there, it's just sort of doing it a lot, right? Like you start where you can do it. So maybe you start on an F and then down to an E, D, C. You work into the register where it's difficult so you can set up some good habits before you get there, if that makes sense. So if anybody has any questions about what I just went over, please let me know. I'm going to bust into Arbin, page 165, number 46 at 48 beats per minute.